Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 52 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're teaching your Raspberry Pi who's boss. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Sunfounder Raphael kit for Raspberry Pi. Now, most of you guys probably already have your gear, but if you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. Now, in the last few lessons, we've learned how to really go in and grab a frame from the Raspberry Pi camera and start analyzing it, manipulating it, stealing from it, adding to it. We've really learned the data structure of that frame and how we can go in and play with it. And what we were starting to do was starting to move down the track of looking at a frame and then dialing in on an object of interest based on color. But then what we found is it turns into a little bit of an exercise of trial and error and change a value, run the program, change the value and run the program. And so what we need some way to be tweaking parameters as we are looking at our image. Never fear. OpenCV has a feature called Trackbars. And what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you how to use Trackbars. And Trackbars are going to be very, very useful for the remainder of this lesson, for the remainder of this class, because we're always going to want to go in and be able to tweak something. And so that is what I am going to show you today. Sound good? I hope so. And so what I will need to do is move over to the code view, and then I will need to move out of your way. And we don't want to start completely from scratch. So I will have you call up the most excellent www.toptechboy.com, and then I need you to find a lesson. You can use the little search icon here, find a lesson called Calculating Frames Per Second in OpenCV and Overlay on Frame, and then we can we can get this code here that we can start with in order to run the camera. So let's just come over here. I will paste, and just to make sure the world is in proper order, we will run this, and boom, there I am in live color at 30 frames a second. Okay, so let's get out of that. So we have our basic program. Okay, now what is it that we want to do? We want to create track bars. Now I'm going to give you the homework assignment to do track bars, to go in and dial in on the hue, saturation, and value to zero in on your object of interest. So I'm going to do a different track bar example, and then that will be your homework assignment. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a square, a rectangle on the OpenCV frame, but the position of the rectangle and the size of the rectangle is going to be set by what? By track bars. And so if we're going to want to set X position and Y position and the box width and the box height, if we're going to want to fine tune all of those things, we're going to need how many track bars? 4. Okay, so this will be a good example. This will be something that will kind of allow you to figure things out and get things going. And what am I doing here? Pretend you didn't see that. Okay, pretend you didn't see that. Of course, guys, I go and I write the code beforehand so that I've kind of practiced it once before we do it for real. But we're going to jump in here, and we're going to come. That's kind of strange. Yeah, okay, so I thought we had gotten this. Maybe it didn't copy. So let's go www.toptechboy.com. Let's see, there it is. So now I am going to copy this, and then I'm going to come over here and paste it. Okay, that looks good. Maybe I just got a little confused. I'm not sure what happened a minute ago, but we're not going to worry about it. We know that this works, and so we're going to jump in now, and we are going to get ready to code. Oh, I see. This is what threw me off. This is actually what puts on that frames per second thing. So never fear, never fear, never fear. So I'm going to come down here now. And what are we going to need to do? We are going to need to create track bars. Well, if we're going to create track bars, we're going to have to put them somewhere. So I am going to create a window. I'm going to create an OpenCV window for us to put these track bars in. And that's pretty easy. I'm going to say cv2.named window. So this just creates a window that's going to be empty. And if it's going to be named, I got to give it a name. So I'm going to call it my track bars, like that. Okay, close the string, close the named window. That looks good. Now I need to create the track bars. How many track bars am I going to need to create? I am going to need to create 4 track bars. And so I'm going to do a cv2.create track bar. Pretty intuitive, isn't it? And so what is the first thing that I am going to need? I'm going to need the X position of the box, the X position of the box. Now, it's going to create this track bar that will allow me to set the X position of the box, but I've got to tell it where to put that track bar. Where do I want to put it? I want to put it in the window, my track bars, okay? And that's what we just created right up here. So it's going to put this track bar in that window. So that sort of makes sense. Now I've got to give it an initial value. Where do I want my initial X value? Well, let's just put it anywhere. Let's put it at 10, okay? And now the second thing that it wants is, what is the maximum value? Like, what is the maximum value of the track bar? Well, I want it to be on the screen, and so you would think that I would want it to be display W so that the box wouldn't go off the screen, okay? But remember, do I want display W? No, I want what? Display W minus 1, because we started counting at 0, and we've talked about that ad nauseum in the earlier lessons. Now I've got to name a function. So this is the track bar, but when you monkey with that track bar, I've got to do something. So I've got to create a function that tells OpenCV or tells Python what to do when you monkey with that track bar. So here I'm setting up the track bar. Now, what do I do if the user fools with the track bar? Well, I'm just going to tell it to go to the function trackX. Okay, what is the function trackX? We haven't defined it yet. But what I'm going to do is let's go in and set up all of our track bars, and then we'll go in and set up all of our functions. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Now, I think I am just going to snag this one, and I think I am going to paste it, and we're going to create another track bar, but this one, instead of X position, this is going to be Y position. It's still going to my track bars. I'll still start at 10, but instead of width, this is Y, this is going to be what? Height, display height. And this time I'm going to go to the function trackY, which I haven't defined yet. And remember, we set up display width and display height up here, so that should be good. Okay, so now let's come down here and let's go again. And this time, instead of X position, what do I want? I want to know the box width. So this one is going to be box width. That's what it's going to be labeled. And then where is it going to go? My track bars. And let's just say, let's start with an itty bitty box. And it's going to be how wide? It's going to be 10 pixels wide. And then how big do you want the box to be? Well, I guess the box could be like almost kind of like the whole size of the frame. So I'll just leave it that big, even though you probably really wouldn't make it that big. Now we are going to do, if we did box width, we are also going to need what? Box height, like that. Okay. My track bars, and we'll make it 10 And this time, instead of display width, we'll make it display height because we're doing height. And instead of tracking X, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I'm sorry, this is track X. That's right. This is track Y. That's right. This would be track W, track the width. And then this is going to be track H, track the height, like that. Does that make sense? Okay, we've created our 4 track bars, and they would go into this empty window called My Track Bars. Now, if I tried to run it at this point, it would probably crash because we haven't created our functions track X, track Y, track W, and track H. And so let's go ahead and do that. And let's do that kind of up here early because I think we might need to define them before we call them, since Python execute things in order. So I'm going to define a function, what? Track X. And then that track X is going to get a value. So when it comes to track X, what's it going to do? It's going to grab the value from the track bar. I've got to have a variable that I put that value in. So I'm just going to make it a generic variable that I'm going to call val. Okay, track X is going to put the value of the track bar at the point that you monkey with it in val. Now, what is the problem? Who is the only part of the program that's going to know what val is? The only part of the program is going to be this function. So I need to give a global variable that the rest of the program will be able to know what that value is. So I'm going to call that global variable X position, because that's what I want to get from the X track bar. Now I've got to give X position a value that is going to be what? Well, it's going to be the value that we just read. Okay, it's going to be the value that we just read. So X position is going to be the value that we just read from the track bar when we monkeyed with it. Okay, and now value is put into X position, which is a global variable. So anywhere else in the program, it will know what X position is. And then just to help in debugging, let's go ahead and say print, and I'm going to say X position, and then that is going to be X position. Just so as we're going through the program, we can kind of debug it, see if it's doing what we want. Now, I get probably in more trouble copying and pasting than just writing the whole thing again, but let's see if we can do this. Okay, this time, instead of track X, we are going to track Y. And this time, what is our global variable? Instead of X position, it's going to be Y position, and then it's going to be Y position as value, and then this would be Y, and this would be Y. Actually, I think that was kind of a smart move. I think that was a pretty easy one. Now, we want what? This time, we want, what are we going to call that? We're going to call it, I got to think a little bit. I want to give a good, okay, we're going to call it box width. Or I'll just call it box W for box width. Okay, and then box width is equal to val, and then we are going to call this box width, and then what are we going to print? Box width, like that. Okay, I think we have one more to go here, and so this time, oh, and this is not track X, this is track what? What do we call it? Track W? Yeah. I told you we were going to get in trouble. So I'm going to track X, I'm going to track Y, I'm going to track W. We almost got ourselves in trouble there, but we saved it at the last minute. Doesn't count as an error if you find it before you run it. Now we're going to track height. Okay, so now the global variable will be box height, and then box height is going to be equal to val, and now we'll call this box height, and then we'll call this box H like that. Guys, I think we can run this program now, and I do like to run it as we go along so we can kind of get our silly little errors out before the program gets too long. Now this should create the track bars. We don't do anything with that data, but we're going to print it out just to make sure that they're working like we expect. And so let's run this thing. Boom, look at that. Okay, so here is the camera view, and here is our happy little track bar. I am not sure why I have that black bar up there. I am not exactly sure what that is. Oh, maybe, I don't know, maybe I should have given a size. Maybe what I would want to do is maybe it created a generic size when I did this named window, and maybe I should have given the named window a size, but I am not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so now look down here, right, and you can see box width, box height, 1010, X position, Y position. You can see those. Now, let's see if I move my X position. Okay, do you see as I move my X position, that X position is taking on a new value. If I move my Y position, I'm changing the value of Y position. Now I've got box width and I've got box height, and those are all changing. Okay, so now the program has that data coming from the track bar. So we have done some really, really great progress here. Okay, what do we want to do? Well, I think what we're going to want to do now is we are going to want to create a rectangle on our frame based on those parameters. And so let me go ahead and let's see here. I think, that's what I got confused about a while ago. Okay, I already set a height. This is the OpenCV parameters for that frames per second text. And so I've got some stuff already set up there, but I'm just going to do a different one, box color, and box color is going to be equal to, what color do we want this box? I want to make it red, so I'll just use my color because my color is already red. Okay, so now we're going to come down here, and darn it, I hate to do this to you guys, but I hate using M, so I'm going to call it frame. And if I call that frame, I've got to call this frame. If I call that frame, I've got to call this frame. Okay. And so now I've put the text. Now what do I need to do? I need to do a cv2.rectangle, and then where do I want to put that rectangle? I want to put it on frame. And then where does it go? Remember, you got to give the position of the rectangle in a tuple, which means inside of parentheses an X and a Y inside of parentheses. And again, OpenCV wants column, comma, row. When we're dealing with the frame itself and manipulating the frame itself, it wants row. I'm sorry, I might have said that backwards. OpenCV wants column, comma, row. When we're manipulating the frame and selecting pixels or ranges, it wants row, comma, column. And so they're backwards, but this is an OpenCV command here, so this will be column, comma, row. And what is column? That is X position, because that's going back and forth, comma, Y position. So that's the upper left corner as a tuple. Now I need to give it the lower right corner as a tuple. How would we do that? That would be X position plus what? X position plus what? Box W. Okay. And then the lower right, the Y value, would be Y position plus box height, like that. Close the tuple. Now we got to give it my color. What did I call that up there? My color. As I thought. Easier to check than to crash the program. And then the weight of the line was 3, and that would probably be okay. Could it really be this simple? I will need everyone to hold your breath. Take a big swig of jet fuel. Take a big swig of jet fuel. Hold your breath. All right, we got something happening. Look, we got some good stuff happening here. Giddy up. I think this is going to work. So let's come in here and let's move this. Let's move this up here. Guys, you could do move Windows commands to have these things come up more in a more organized fashion. But the problem that I have is I have a second screen, and OpenCV gets confused with two screens. So if I start trying to put it in position, it puts it up on the screen that you're not looking at. Okay, let's see what happens when we play with X position. Giddy up! Changing the X position. Double chest bump. Okay, and changing the Y position. Now, I think we need a what? I think we need a bigger box. And what do we need? We need a bigger box. And you see, like, I could tune in here. I could tune in here on what? I could tune in here on my face. And so that's the box width is going to get smaller. And then we're going to move it over. So you see, I could kind of dial in on my face here. Now, you remember what we're really trying to do is dial in on a color, but I'm just kind of giving you a demo here so you'll see how to do it. And now I've showed you how to do track bars, but I can't help it. I'm just going to try to do one thing on the fly. One thing on the fly, because we've got that little thing defined there. Well, what if I came in and I created a region of interest, and that region of interest is going to be frame, and what part of the frame do I want? Well, I want that region. Now remember, when we're manipulating with frame, we want to do what? We want to do rows first. We want to do Y first. So I want to go from Y position, okay, to what? Y position plus box width. Do you see I'm trying to create a new region of interest, a new frame based on whatever is inside the box? So I've got my rows from Y position to Y position plus box width, and then I'm going to need what? X position to what? X position plus, Y is not box width. Y, do I have this backwards? Y is not box width. Y is box height. I think I had that backwards. Y plus box height, X position, and it's not box height, it's box H. I told you I shouldn't do this stuff on the fly. And then X is going to be X position plus box width. I sure hope that works. I sure hope that works. Okay. And then close that whole bad boy off. And then I should never try to do silly stuff like this on the fly. But now what we're going to do is let's show that. So I'll say cv2.im show. And then what I'm going to show the ROI. And then what is it going to be? It is the data set ROI, like that. And I just really have a feeling I made a mistake here, but hold your breath. Okay, we got stuff happening. We got stuff happening here. So we're going to put this here. We're going to see if we can move this over here. And then we have this itty bitty little box called ROI. Well, let's see if we can make that. Okay, that just moved it. Let's get this thing bigger. Okay, there, now we got something going. Now we got something going. Okay, now let's see if we can move this up and down. I can move it over, and then I can make it taller, and then I can move it back. Boom. Okay, do you see that? Do you see how cool that is? Is now we're using the track bars to define a region of interest, and then we're bringing it over and making it a new data set. So how cool is that? Okay, guys, I hope you see the power of track bars, and I also hope you see how easy the track bars are to set up and use. And so they're very powerful, and they are pretty easy to set up. But then what your homework assignment is going to be, is to do something like this. Okay, so you got to go back and think about last week's lesson, and let's see if this is actually going to work here. So I'm going to bring this down. Okay, and then I am going to bring this down, and then I am going to bring this down, and then I am going to bring my track bar over here. Okay, I'll put the track bar on top of the mask. Okay, so now if I bring this in, okay, what do I want to do? I want to dial in on this, so I'm going to set a hue. Okay, I'm going to set a hue value, and then I'm going to come in. And do you see how, look down, let me go Munchkin on you so that you can see this. Okay, but do you see how I can just so carefully dial in my object of interest? And do you see how I'm getting rid of a lot of that noise? I'm getting rid of the noise, but I am completely getting, now I'm getting some other stuff in. See, that came way up too far. Okay, do you see how I'm completely capturing my region of interest, my object of interest, and I'm tracking my object of interest? Okay, and I've been able to tune out my hand, and I've been able to tune out other things. Now, orange is a little harder, but let's see if we can do the orange here, okay? And so I think what I need to do is I need to come up. I've got to bring that further down. I got to bring this further down and up. And do you see how now very quickly I am tracking a new object of interest? Okay, so that is your homework. I hate being Munchkin. I hate being Munchkin. Okay, that is your homework assignment for next week, and you need to post your homework solution to YouTube. You guys know the drill. I don't have to give you all the details on that, but post your homework and show that you can dial in an object of interest with those track bars, and then as we move forward, you're going to have the tool sets you need to start doing some pretty cool and exciting things. And so that is your homework assignment. Guys, I hope you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. If you enjoyed the lesson, make sure to give us a thumbs up. Also, leave a comment down below because that helps us with the old YouTube juice. If you have not subscribed to the channel already, make sure that you subscribe. When you do, ring that bell so you'll get notification of future lessons. And as always, share this video with other people because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.